my last talk about the tarot, I was speaking about the number cards of the minor arcana, and this time I would like to talk about the court cards, which are the 4 cards in each suit that have images of people on them. In some decks, these are the prince and princess and queen and king. In others, they're the page, knight, queen and king. Sometimes they're the page, knave, queen and king. Sometimes the princess, prince, queen and knight. The point is that there's 4 court cards, and each of them represent a different stage in a kind of hierarchy. And this hierarchy is an elemental hierarchy. So just as each suit has its own element, each court card also has its own element. The lowest court card, which is the page or the princess, has a elemental connection to the earth element, which is the most solid element. The knight or the knave or the prince has a connection to the air element. The queen has a connection to the water element, and the king, or in a few decks it's referred to as the knight, which can be confusing, is connected to the fire element. So what you have in these court cards are different personality types. Each court card represents a balance of the elements. We were talking in previous lectures about how each suit corresponds to an element, and the numbering of the suits gives you an idea of how that individual element is in or out of balance. And the court cards talk about how the overall status of one's elemental balance is at. So that what you look at with each court card is the suit and which of the court cards it is. And that gives you a combination of 2 elements. And it also means that there's 2 elements that are absent, and so they're passive or they're weak. So for one example, here you've got the Page of Wands, and the Page of Wands is a card of the earth element, and the wands is the suit of fire. So the 2 elements that the Page of Wands has are fire and earth. It's the earthy quality of fire in the case of the Page of Wands. The Prince of Swords here, or Knave of Swords, is air and air, because swords are air and the prince is air. So it's a double air quality, and that would be a symbol for a situation that is very, very focused only on one elemental area. So it's a situation usually of extreme imbalance. Here we have the Queen of Coins, who is the watery element or the watery aspect of the earth element. And here's the King of Cups, which is the fiery aspect of the water element. So when you're looking at these in the context of self-inquiry and self-development, these cards represent people, and they represent the current balance of someone's personality. This allows you to see a kind of snapshot of where a person's balance is at. When you have 2 elements in the card that are both the same, so like the Prince of Swords or the Queen of Cups or the King of Wands, which are air, air, or water, water, or fire, fire, then you have a situation of a significant imbalance where one area is hyper and focused or hyper enlarged and the other areas are kept negligent. when you have two elements that are present, so in the Queen of Swords that has water and air, then you have a situation where there are certain things that a person is focusing on and certain things that they're not. So you have a basically a typical situation where there is still a room to look at, what's being paid attention to and what isn't. By looking at these cards, you can then see where a person's attentions are directed, where their focus and their balance is, or where it isn't. And in the context of the other cards that you might look at in a tarot reading, it'll give you an idea of what needs to be worked on or what doesn't need to be worked on. If you're using the tarot not so much for divination, but more for a tool for self-inquiry. So in the next talk, I'm going to break down each of these court cards very briefly, one by one, and try to give some insight into how each of them reflects a situation of elemental balance or imbalance.